What's going on, guys? It's Phil here, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today, we are going to be diving into AEW WrestleDream 2024, as I'll be giving you guys my full thoughts and review on the show that happened this past Saturday. And guys, AEW WrestleDream is going to go down as probably one of the most polarizing pay-per-views that AEW has really ever done, mainly because of the fact that ending that we saw at WrestleDream was one of the most disturbing yet kind of satisfying, for me at least, endings that we are going to be talking about for possibly a year after everything is all said and done. This whole entire situation right now between Bryan Danielson, Moxley's crew, and everything that is going to be happening for AEW down the line in terms of the AEW World Championship and the war that is about to commence in AEW is some really interesting stuff, and we are going to be diving into not only all that, but we are going to be diving into everything else that happened at AEW WrestleDream. But before we get into all of that, make sure you guys hit the like button, turn on the bell for all notifications as you subscribe to the channel. That way you guys never miss another upload right here on the channel. We are on the road to 200 subscribers now, so thank you guys for all the love and support that you guys have given me so far. And we're just going to keep pumping out content. Let's keep doing this thing. And yeah, let's do this thing as we talk AEW WrestleDream 2024 from this past Saturday. We first kick things off with Hangman Adam Page taking on Jay White, and probably one of the most exciting opening matchups for AEW and their pay-per-view cycle throughout this year. And I loved what they did to open up this matchup here. I already lost in the predictions in terms of who I thought was winning. I thought Hangman Adam Page was going to have this in the bag, mainly because of how great of a feud that he was coming off with Swerve Strickland, and I thought that since he won that hellacious steel cage match, he needed to keep up the momentum and he needed to continue winning. But they had Jay White pick up the victory here, and I was very shocked in that result. Not mainly because of the fact that, Jay White won the match, it's just that with how much momentum Hangman Adam Page has been on, I thought that a win for Hangman Adam Page was going to be one of the things that could propel him to a world championship caliber match down the line. And that obviously did not happen as Jay White picked up the victory. I'm not upset that Jay White picked up the victory. I just want to know where things go next for both of them. I think Jay White would fit perfectly in that Continental Classic, but also I feel like Hangman Adam Page would fit well in the C2 as well. We already know that Jay White is going to possibly go after Christian Cage because Christian Cage and the rest of the patriarchy took the Trios Championships away from the Bang Bang Gang and how that all came about. So, what I ultimately think is going to be happening here is that we are going to be seeing Jay White cost the cash in that Christian has with that contract. And he is not going to be winning the world championship. Christian is not winning the world title anytime soon. And Jay White's going to cost him that opportunity with that contract. Then, after that is all said and done, we're probably going to get maybe a trios match between the patriarchy and the Bang Bang Gang, and then we'll see where things go from there. But I don't even think that cash-in is happening until maybe Full Gear, so we are going to have to wait until that to settle that out. And then when things are kind of getting into the swing of things for the C2, I would love to see both of them in there and mix it up once again. So I think AEW does have a plan for Jay White because I think 2025 is going to be a huge year for him. I just hope that Hangman Adam Page does not get he would never get lost in the shuffle because of his positioning and where he has been since this whole feud with Swerve Strickland started. But I just hope that AEW has a plan for Swerve and for Hangman down the line because with the way that that steel cage ended, I don't think that's going to end anytime soon in terms of their feud. So we'll see where it all goes. Up next, we had the Women's World Championship matchup between Mariah May and Willow Nightingale, and I thought that this match was absolutely fantastic. Willow Nightingale brought Mariah May to one of, if not her best title defense in this title run for Mariah May so far. The only thing that I want to see coming out of this Women's World Championship match is a new story for Mariah May. Because let's face it, Mariah May and her AEW Women's World Championship run thus far has not really been lighting the world on fire, and I don't even really think it's necessarily her fault. There are a ton of things going on right now in the landscape of AEW, and we had this number one contenders four-way to determine Mariah's challenger for WrestleDream so last minute within the build of WrestleDream that the fact of the matter is there's not really much story going on in the AEW women's division right now, and that is a problem for me. I want to see more storylines for the women and storylines that revolve not only just around the championship. I want to see women's feuds that are not just revolving around the channel because this women's division is absolutely stacked, and I wanted this summer to be the summer of the AEW women's division, and that just simply did not happen. Toni Storm is going to be coming back eventually, and we're probably going to be running that back again between Toni and Mariah after everything that happened at AEW Allin. But you got to do that when the time is right, and that time is obviously not right now. Mariah May is going to be fine because obviously she retained the Women's Championship and she is going to be fine. But what I want to see next for Willow and Nightingale is I just don't want her to get lost in the shuffle. And maybe she is somebody that I don't want to get lost in the shuffle, mainly because of the fact that they had a lot of stock for Willow Nightingale, and you do not want to miss the opportunities that she has already been giving herself and that AEW has already been giving her. Toni Storm and Mariah May is going to happen once again, but Willow Nightingale deserves a lot more credit and a lot more opportunities, and she has just been getting better and better and better, and she's just been doing absolutely fantastic work. So, one of the best women's matches in AEW's year so far, for sure, in my honest opinion. And this was easily one of the best title defenses that Mariah May has had. So I loved everything about this. Obviously, the right winner came out on top, and Willow Nightingale is doing some amazing work. So great job on both ladies for the great match that they had at WrestleDream. The next matchup that we had on the card was the TNT title matchup between Jack Perry and Katuyori Shibata. And this matchup was fine for what it was. It was less than 10 minutes, but I think it was honestly the way that it had to be. And the ending left a lot to be desired because of how many people hated it all over social media. I didn't honestly personally hate it because that's what Jack Perry does. He kind of sneaks away with the victory and any chance that he can get. But yeah, Katuyori Shibata had him in a sleeper hold, and his shoulders were down, and the referee counted 1, 2, 3. So Jack Perry retained the TNT title in one of the most nonchalant ways possible, and that was just easily the most Jack Perry way possible. Everything was cool. Jack Perry obviously took the brunt of the attack throughout this entire matchup here. He got chopped to hell and he got forearmed to hell because Katsuhiro Shibata is easily one of the most hard-hitting individuals on the AEW roster. And he actually looked really good here in this TNT Championship match. But Jack Perry was obviously going to retain here because they're just continuing on this thing with Jack right now. And it really wasn't what happened during the match that mattered. It's what happened afterwards. Because after everything was all said and done and Jack Perry retained the TNT title, Daniel Garcia made his presence known, and now he wants a shot at the TNT Championship. And while all of that was happening, we saw the return of MJF. And obviously, MJF and Daniel Garcia had a little bit of a spat, and their feud that happened earlier on in the months prior. But that wasn't all, right? When Daniel Garcia and MJF are having their little stare down, Jack Perry then attacked, and then we saw a little bit of a stare down go down between MJF and Jack Perry. MJF, throughout the build of the Four Pillars four-way match, said to Jack Perry when he was still Jungle Boy that he needed to have an edge to him. And now that he has an edge to him, who knows what can happen down the line between those two. But that wasn't all, because after everything happened in that regard, we saw the return of Adam Cole, baby. Adam Cole returns as a babyface and is now going after MJF. And, they basically just switched roles. MJF was the babyface in all of this, and Adam Cole was the heel when the whole devil story was happening. But I'm perfectly fine with the roles switching up here, because now we can get to the actual feud that AEW and us as fans really wanted to do in the first place. MJF is a fine babyface for what he was at that current time, but he as a heel is so much better. And Adam Cole in this role as a babyface is going to be incredible. So I absolutely love everything that happened here. Daniel Garcia is going to take that TNT Championship away from Jack Perry, and we are going to be getting the feud between MJF and Adam Cole, just like we should have gotten, and it's going to finally end between those two, and I cannot wait to see how that all plays out. Full Gear is where I'm hoping that we get that TNT title off of Jack Perry for Daniel Garcia, because he deserves the title, and then maybe, just maybe, we can have maybe at least 2 matches out of MJF and Adam Cole, and we could possibly end it right where it all began, and now is at AEW World's End. So we'll see where things go, but I loved everything that happened within that whole entire segment after the TNT title match. We then had a 3-way matchup for the AEW International Championship between Will Ospreay, Ricochet, and Konosuke Takeshita. And man, was I so happy to have been wrong in my prediction for this matchup here. I had Will Ospreay retaining the championship, but like I said, I was very happy to be wrong, because Konosuke Takeshita was able to pick up the victory and become the new AEW International Champion, all because of one man and one man only, and that man was Kyle Fletcher. Kyle Fletcher turned on Will Ospreay and stabbed him in the back of the head with that screwdriver presented by Don Callis. And yeah, this is just going to be an absolutely amazing thing to see for not only Konosuke Takeshita, because he has been deserving of a championship for a very long time, but this is going to be a really, really good spot to see for Kyle Fletcher, because AEW has put a lot of stock in Kyle Fletcher as of late, and now that he's a full-fledged heel in this Don Callis family, it's going to be amazing to see. Will Ospreay and Ricochet, I can see teaming up down the line in this whole Don Callis family situation, and they're going to possibly be going after Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita. I can see a matchup between Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay down the line. There is so much potential with everything that is happening here, and I cannot wait to see how it all plays out. I honestly can see at least maybe 3 possible C2 contenders within this thing. I think Ricochet is honestly a lock for the Continental Classic. I would love to see Konosuke Takeshita in that Continental Classic, even though he is the international champion. And there is just so much that can honestly be happening between these 4 guys and this international championship picture that I just cannot wait to see. So this was absolutely fantastic, and I loved how this matchup here was a perfect blend of flippy shit and powerhouse shit, and I just loved how everything played out. Ricochet, this was his coming out party. He finally found himself within AEW. This is where he shined the best, and obviously there's nothing like a Will Ospreay match. Will Ospreay absolutely killed it, and Konosuke Takeshita, he absolutely killed it as well, and he became the new champion, which I am very, very happy about. So good on AEW for capitalizing on the moment and making a new champion, and honestly making a new star out of Kyle Fletcher in the whole midst of everything that was happening. So great stuff all around, and I'm glad that we got a new champion out of it. We then had a best 2 out of 3 falls match between Hologram and the Beast Mortos, and this was just a matchup for the sake of not just having the matchup for everything that AEW is doing with their new Mexico streaming type deal that they've got going on right now. But this was just a really good showcase matchup for both Hologram and Beast Mortos. Hologram has been a mainstay on AEW Collision, and he has been undefeated ever since showing up in AEW, and ever since the Beast Mortos has shown back up on AEW programming, mainly on AEW Dynamite. He has been doing some amazing work. And when you have these two individuals that Tony Khan is really high on right now, put them in the ring together, put them in a 2 out of 3 falls match, allow them to, get themselves over in front of the AEW fan base and just see what happens. This 2 out of 3 falls match was absolutely harmless. And I saw so many people that were just not, hating on the match just for the sake of hating it, but they were just really confused as to why everything was happening in the way that it was. Guys, at the end of the day, this was just a really good showcase matchup for both of these guys, and it was an amazing opportunity to show what these two guys can bring to the table for obvious maybe future title matches down the line or just future storylines that happen down the line. Hologram picked up the victory. Awesome match. And this was just a really good showcase for both of them. And I cannot actually wait to see where things go from here because I think the Beast Mortos has a ton of potential. And obviously, Hologram is a mainstay that people should really have their eyes on in AEW. I did want to talk about the only talking segment that we had throughout this entire pay per view after the Beast Mortos match with Hologram. And it was just a really good segment to where we saw that Swerve Strickland is now cleared to compete. So that's absolutely fantastic. And they were really trying to egg it on with MVP and Shelton Benjamin's aspect throughout this entire segment, saying that, look, at the end of the day, you're either with us or you're against us. And this is going to be an amazing thing to witness because while we have seen Swerve Strickland and Prince Nana's partnership blossom into what has become, this right here to me is ultimately going to lead to a Swerve Strickland heel turn and them possibly joining forces with the Hurt Syndicate. And Swerve Strickland could possibly leave Nana in the end of all of this. A lot of people were expecting Bobby Lashley to show up here at WrestleDream and be a part of the Hurt Syndicate, and he will be. He will be in AEW. He is basically already signed at this point. They're just waiting for the right moment to debut him. But it didn't happen at WrestleDream. And, Swerve was like, look, you may have messed up, you being Prince Nana, for, the last few times that, we've been associated with each other, but there's no way in hell that I am turning on family. So you can, take your offer of me joining the Hurt Syndicate and stick it right up your ass. So that's what Swerve Strickland said to MVP and Shelton Benjamin. Shelton Benjamin kind of got into it with Swerve Strickland, and I can easily see that matchup happening at Full Gear. But yeah, this whole entire thing of, sticking the offer right up their asses and, having everything kind of went down in the way that it did, I can easily see Swerve Strickland joining the Hurt Syndicate and leaving Prince Nana behind because it makes a lot of sense. And ultimately, I actually would love to see Swerve Strickland be a part of the Hurt Syndicate and really, be that, heel once again in AEW because him as a heel is absolutely fantastic, though his babyface stuff has been really, really good to see. This also allows Shelton Benjamin to really step up his game and to really, be a focal point for his career and for what the Hurt Syndicate is going to be until Bobby Lashley does come in, because once he comes in, he's going to be a big focal point as well. But this allows Shelton Benjamin to really give the fans something that we really have not seen before, and that is him on his own and being a huge focal point for this huge angle that is happening now with the Hurt Syndicate. So I'm absolutely loving everything that is happening here, and I cannot wait to see where things go down the line because Swerve Strickland being a part of the Hurt Syndicate makes a lot of sense, and I would absolutely love to see it when it all does come down to it actually happening. If that is actually going to be the case, and that is going to be the way that things are going to be playing out. The next matchup that happened at AEW WrestleDream was the matchup between Darby Allin and Brody King. This was supposed to be an open challenge for Darby Allin, and then all of a sudden it kind of just turned into a match with Brody King. And, they did the whole story of them being on the independent scene and seeing how both of them were kind of on the up, up and coming scene of getting to AEW, and how Darby Allin got Brody King to be a part of AEW, and how things were just really working out for the both of them now that they were here in the company, and they were kind of just really building off of that standpoint. But it was just a fine match for what it was. It didn't even really last anything, probably more than 12 minutes. It was just a good matchup to get Darby Allin a win in Seattle, and it was just a really cool way to get Brody King on the show. It really wasn't anything all that special, but they had a little bit of handshake at the end of it. They have each other's respect, and I guess we'll see where things go. Darby Allin, as we will talk about later on in the program, obviously with the main event and everything that happened there, is going to be a huge standpoint for what AEW is going to be doing for the future of Moxley and his crew. And like I said, we'll get into all of that. But this is just a really good way to get Darby Allin a win on pay per view in his home. And yeah, I don't know where Brody King goes from here. I don't even know where the heck the rest of the House of Black are, but it was a fine match for what it was. It really wasn't anything too special, but it was a match for what it was, and it got Darby Allin the victory. Now, this is a matchup where I think a lot of people are saying that they got it wrong, and I personally don't believe that they did. The AEW World Tag Team titles were on the line as the Young Bucks were defending against Private Party. And no, I absolutely love Private Party. I want that to be known right here, right now. It was not believable in the slightest that the Young Bucks were going to lose the AEW World Tag Team titles here to Private Party. They were building this whole entire story off the fact that Private Party beat the Young Bucks 5 years ago in the AEW World Tag Team Championship tournament, and how they were basically the eighth seed and how they beat the number one seed. And, it was just a very, very shocking upset. That's it. That's all that the story was about. And, you know, I love Private Party. Zay and Quinn are absolutely fantastic. I've even gotten a chance to, you know, meet them at some indie shows in the past. But you're not going to take the titles off the Young Bucks. As of right now, the Young Bucks are just running roughshod over the tag team division, and honestly, that is doing a disservice to the rest of the tag team and the entire division as the AEW World Tag Team Champions, because they have not defended these titles nearly enough as they should. But that's exactly the point of everything that is happening right now, with the Young Bucks being the tag team champions. And with them being EVPs and with them just running roughshod all over the tag team division, it was just not it was just not believable for Private Party to defeat the EVPs and get those tag team titles. Now, a lot of people are saying that they got the decision wrong here and that they should have called an audible, and that the Private Party guys and Zay and Quinn should have just won the tag team titles here at WrestleDream. And look, I am not going to be mad at all if at some point later down the line, maybe at Full Gear or maybe at World's End, we get Private Party as the new AEW World Tag Team Champions. But at WrestleDream, it was just not going to be a thing. And many people were even more upset because they had, this whole entire video package with Amazing Red, who trained Private Party to, be a part of AEW WrestleDream and be a part of that, massive video segment that they played. And, people thought that just because of that video segment alone, that they were going to win the tag team titles. I didn't see them winning the tag team titles in the slightest, and the Young Bucks retained the titles. We'll see where things go from here on out. I'm actually pretty certain that they will become tag team champions down the line, but it just was not going to happen at WrestleDream. And I get it. People think that they missed a moment here, but the moment is going to be even more sweet when it happens later on down the line. So I think this is a perfect decision to make, and the Young Bucks retaining the tag team titles is going to be better off in the end. we finally got to the lowest point of the entire night, which was the Ring of Honor World Championship matchup between Mark Briscoe and Chris Jericho. And I say that this was the lowest point of the entire night because once everybody kind of figured out on social media that Chris Jericho was going to be co-main eventing AEW WrestleDream, everybody was kind of just, waiting for the matchup to be over and just waiting for, you know, things to progress so that we can get to the main event of Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley. But, look, the story was what it was, right? Jericho brought up the late great Jay Briscoe, and that made people even more upset that Jericho was on television, and it was just a really, really messed up story, to be completely honest. It really, you know, did a number on a ton of fans, bringing up Jay Briscoe in the way that they did, and, just having everything kind of just fall apart in the way that it did. Mark Briscoe obviously retains the championship here, as he should. Jericho should not have won the Ring of Honor World Championship to begin with when he became the Ocho. And, Jericho is just in a really sour place right now in AEW, and fans just don't want to see him on television. And Tony Khan, he knows that. He absolutely knows that. Jericho knows that. Everybody in AEW probably knows that. But they keep putting Jericho on AEW programming, and that's what's just really souring down the product right now of Jericho being this whole learning tree gimmick and how he's really trying to get it over, and somehow it's working, but it's also not working because, it's just go away heat that he is generating, not good heel heat, and it's just a whole mess with Chris Jericho on AEW programming right now. But the match, it was okay for what it was. But this was obviously the down point of the entire night. And because we got to that down point, it really made the main event that much more special in terms of the actual in-ring action that we got. And then the ending of that match kind of let things to be a downer. So we'll get into everything that happened in that main event right now. That way we can just talk about how everything boiled down to what kind of transpired and where I think it could ultimately lead to down the line. Now let's talk about the match that everybody wants to talk about right here, right now, and that is the main event of AEW WrestleDream, which was the AEW World Championship matchup between the champion Bryan Danielson and the challenger Jon Moxley. First of all, in terms of the actual in-ring action of the entire matchup here, what do you expect from Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley? An absolute classic. That's what you expect. That's what we got. The actual in-ring match that we got between Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson was absolutely tremendous. Those two are top-notch talent. We all know this, and we all knew that we were going to be getting a great match out of them. That was not an issue. That was never going to be an issue because of the actual, talents that we have in Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson. The valet or manager, so to speak, of Marina Shafir, she did very well within her role within this matchup here. And I know that Marina Shafir is really just going to be the silent assassin of this new group with Jon Moxley and the rest of them. But I have to give my props and praise to Marina Shafir because, they're playing to her strengths right now as, this silent killer, as this silent assassin within Moxley's crew. And I, for one, am actually very happy that they found a role for Marina Shafir within this group. Because if you were to tell me, months down the line that we were going to be getting a group with Moxley, with Claudio, with Pac, and Marina Shafir, I would probably tell you guys that Marina Shafir has no business being a part of this, and we should just completely scrap her and, replace her with another possible female talent, or, maybe just get a fourth guy in there. But she has been absolutely killing it in this role right now, and I know a lot of people really aren't too keen on Marina Shafir, but I think she's actually been doing a really good job there. So there is that to take into account. I love the emotions that AEW was really putting forth within this matchup here because Jon Moxley was going right after Bryan's neck, and it's really bringing that emotional side to the matchup that was taking place within everything that was happening here. Because we all know that Bryan Danielson is going to go away because he needs neck surgery before the end of the year. And whether that is the truth or whether that is all for the story, that you're going to get an emotional feeling out of the crowd and out of the people watching at home because of how much Jon Moxley was just focusing in on the neck with the pile driver on the Spanish announce table, and them exposing the concrete underneath the mat, and doing a Death Rider on the concrete, and how everything was kind of just shaping up to where Jon Moxley was just really focusing in on Bryan's neck. You were going to get that emotional feeling out of the fans, and that is what they really wanted to get out of you for the sympathy of Bryan Danielson. And it really was doing a number on a ton of fans, not only just within the 8,000 in the Tacoma Dome, but for the people watching at home. And that right there was a huge thumbs up for me, because you really want to have that kind of sympathy out there for Bryan Danielson, because he's home in Washington and he is defending the AEW World Championship, where if he does not retain that title, it's the end of his full-time in-ring career. So they really nail it in terms of the actual emotional aspect within this AEW main event. But the actual finish of this matchup here is where everybody is really taking things into account, because the chokehold was believable. Bryan Danielson did not tap out. Bryan Danielson did not give up. Bryan Danielson's body completely shut down on him. And that was the reason why the referee called for the bell in the way that he did. And it just made the ultimate sense in the world, because Bryan Danielson's body has been battered, has been bruised ever since the first attack that Jon Moxley and the rest of his crew did back at AEW All Out. And now that his body is just completely shutting down on him, that is the reason why we got the ending in the way that we got it. And that was an absolutely perfect way to go about it. It was honestly, and I'm not trying to compare it to this specific moment, but the air was taken out of the arena and the air was taken out of the fans, existence at home, because of the way that that match finished. And it's almost drawing comparisons to what happened at WrestleMania 30, to when the referee counted the 3 and the Undertaker streak was broken by Brock Lesnar. Now, like I said, these two moments are completely different in every single way imaginable, but the fact of the matter of having the air being sucked out of the arena at that moment, seeing Bryan Danielson lose in the way that he did, was a moment that I feel is going to be very pivotal for AEW's future, not only for the next couple of months, but for maybe even a year down the line. And that's going to be huge for a story just like this one with Moxley and the rest of his crew. Not every show has to end with the babyface overcoming and coming out on top in the end. And that is what AEW WrestleDream showed fans. And I absolutely loved it in the way that they did that, because we already had that moment for Bryan Danielson, and having him cheer and having the fans be a part of his celebration when he won the AEW World Championship back at AEW Allin. We saw that. We saw everything that happened in the way that it did over there back in London when we saw him defeat Swerve for the AEW World Championship. We saw him have that moment. We saw him be, happy and be in the moment when he won the title. But now it's time for him to take that title off and go home, be with his family, and ultimately retire in the end. And it was just a very emotional moment, but it had to happen. If Bryan Danielson was good and he wasn't going to have neck surgery before the end of the year, we probably would have gotten Bryan Danielson and him retaining the AEW World Championship. But the thing is, he has to have surgery at the end of the year. And when he won the AEW World Championship in the first place, I knew that the championship run for him was not going to be very long, because it was just a moment of having him get the championship before he had to go away, and it was just an amazing moment for at that point in time. But now, Bryan Danielson wanted to go out in the way that he wanted to go out. He wanted to go out against Jon Moxley, and he did this for the love of the game. He did this for the love of the game and for the love of Jon Moxley and for the love of the crew and having him, doing the job and allowing the crew to be as vicious as possible so that they can leave the crowd in the way that they did. And it was just perfectly well done. You got Wheeler Yuta, massive heat for being the one to choke out Bryan Danielson with the plastic bag. And then you had Claudio get massive heat as well by having the chair over Bryan's neck and stomping on it. Guys, this is just perfect in every single way. And what happened with the entire locker room entering out when, things were just going a little bit too far for the AEW's locker room's liking was also an amazing moment because then we saw the final shot of Darby Allin, who had to witness all of this because he was zip tied to the ropes. We saw Daniel Garcia there as well. We saw Orange Cassidy and we saw Hook in the background. Those four guys are going to be main focal points within this entire war that is going to be happening between Moxley's crew and the rest of AEW. And this war is going to be easily the biggest storyline that AEW has honestly told since, honestly, it could probably be one of, if not the biggest storyline that AEW has ever told if they do it in the right way. At the end of all of this, Jon Moxley used Bryan Danielson as a message to the rest of the AEW locker room. You guys either step up or you guys step aside because right here, right now, me and this crew of mine are going to run roughshod over all of AEW. We're creating a warpath for ourselves, and you guys are going to be the brunt of it. So, like I said, you guys either step up or you step aside, which is the reason why Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy, Hook, and Daniel Garcia are all going to be a part of what this war is going to be. It's going to make Darby Allin look like an absolute megastar when he ultimately wins the AEW World Championship. Daniel Garcia is ultimately going to win that TNT Championship down the line. We are going to be seeing Orange Cassidy ultimately get over the hump and become a world champion type caliber superstar. And Hook, he is going to be the best version of himself after everything is all said and done. This is making the AEW locker room step the hell up because after witnessing the tragedy that we all saw at the end of AEW WrestleDream to a guy like Bryan Danielson, who is obviously universally loved by not only just every fan out there, but that entire AEW locker room because he was the quote unquote leader of how that locker room was really just being run. It's just making how everybody should be stepping up because this is going to change AEW for the foreseeable future until Bryan is actually able to come back after everything is all said and done. This is not going to be the last time that we've seen Bryan Danielson in an AEW ring because, yeah, sure, this is full-time in-ring career being done, but he will be back. There will be a time and there will be a day where Bryan Danielson does come back and he will get the ultimate send off in the end. We are not going to have Bryan Danielson's career end in that way because if that was the actual way that Bryan Danielson did want to go out, then we should obviously respect that. But we're going to have the ultimate moment of seeing Bryan Danielson walk into the sunset and retire the right way because that's what Bryan Danielson deserves. So at the end of the day, I just love what AEW is doing right now, especially with that angle and how everything just kind of shaped out in the way that it did. And I want to give a huge shout out to Johnny. Go subscribe to him and, go check out everything that he has been doing because this theory that I basically echoed throughout this entire video was all him. This was his theory, and his theory has been blowing up all over social media, which is the reason why I kind of wanted to bring forth it on this channel because it's just a really, really good theory. And seeing how everything just kind of shaped out in the way that it did, it really does make a lot of sense if you think about it. So I cannot wait to see what AEW does with Moxley, his crew, and the rest of the AEW locker room in terms of this war that is going to be happening. And it's just an amazing thing to see. So, Johnny, good on you, man. That was absolutely fantastic in the way that you shaped that out. And honestly, I'm kind of envious that I, can't make up theories in the way that you do because it was just an amazing way that you absolutely, just nailed that entire thing. So, this entire stuff between Moxley, his crew, Bryan Danielson, and how everything just kind of shaped out in that entire main event was special. And I cannot wait to see this upcoming Wednesday's episode of Dynamite tomorrow because, man, this entire situation is going to be very, very interesting to deep dive into. And I cannot wait to see how it all plays out. So that's it, guys, for my AEW WrestleDream 2024 review. I absolutely loved the show from top to bottom. I thought this was honestly probably one of AEW's best pay-per-views of the year in terms of, the actual chaos that happened throughout this entire show. And the fact that we actually did not end it off in a, positive note is one of the most interesting things that AEW has done, and it's going to be a huge pivotal moment for the rest of the year for AEW heading into, so many other big events down the line for their shows. And I cannot wait to see what happens tomorrow on Dynamite and just to see how everything all shapes out. It's going to be a very, very interesting next few months for AEW. But guys, like, comment, subscribe, do your thing, and turn on the bell for all notifications. That way you never miss another upload right here on the YouTube channel. I appreciate all the love and support, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one, guys. Stay safe, God bless, and peace.